I've seen it like a
All right, Dylan, Spencer, get started soon. I don't want the camera. I did.
I'll send that as a network Facebook.
You send the app or
flash drive. Do you want it on? Do you want it on flash also?
The internet is, for me, it goes on and off, and then I have to re-sign like every 10 minutes, so.
Yeah, I know the internet's all.
What about the username?
It takes like 20 minutes. I'm not joking.
Yeah, so I've just defaulted to, after I spent like 15 minutes in round 1 trying to figure this out. Is everyone ready?
is someone have
One
any-
second.
Yeah, flash, somebody?
Hey, is everyone ready?
I am ready.
Bert? First is inherency of bomb, not the use of the zero-day vulnerabilities, unknown software flaws, other vendors, loopholes, line asset, keeping the secret jeopardized, widespread cybersecurity, stock on Ruby 15. Zero-day vulnerability until explanation power because of very low potential targets, new protect them, if the company that make the effective software, told about the quality issue software update effect them, United States policy set of federal government, real flaws, and security company, and their problem resolve how the public cover out the product, separate quality, and exploit national security law, and for the purpose of the full effect, ensure the government can will, equality, exploit zero-day warning company, zero-day exploit the rated policy, and our government charge purchase software, and use zero-day exploit the fact that the video and use it less secure, but I should be doing everything in private church about the rate effects as soon as they're discovered. Next is IP theft. Intellectual property theft is Spain disclosed with the already built structure which with companies which is key Jaffer 15. There's a nation changing problem, much more credit, much more economic viability comes to day and now want to get back to where every major US company for intellectual property of the nation, they collect intelligence, they collect intelligence, trying to target American corporations, stealing intellectual property, everything direct American company, a nation and economic ability to be global market. How can the government of the private sector enable the private sector how to better defend itself? And the government of the law goes already in my company against the whole thing and whatever cover the top of the government law with the deep dark tell us something of fundamental exchange. I bring up information on your credit chart the government private sector share kind of information and IP theft destroys military operations where code 13. Intellectual property sector charge American companies have the corporation IP that huge economy no longer well revenue demoralizing better US company 250 billion per year without the economy comes 70% national IP that China is separate from the military US military operating together the US strategies the China mother network to control these military drones the jets hacking shut down the electronic grid and rely on the separate the sea land Russian IP that will target US military technology ONCIX 11. Licensing activity, Russian manufacturing cable collector to send to US information technology for the separate will continue to deploy security sort of rate technically argue this information US sort of motivated achieve military part of the US technology potentially to the foreign technology jet hide into the maybe in military technology for the continue collecting for US military technology render development effort to obtain the center US million system technology or supporting over the US military main driver for an effort to collect the or something technology and this destruction causes great power war Kagan 219. Great power confidence general directly recognized central role of president liberal over the national about the use of the foreign power and support the order against several challenges. Great part of American secret regional dominant period elements in the US is the regional balance Europe Asia and the Middle East over the fate of the threat invasion China security. We need to turn out a favor to order water based stability return to water period is return to great power conflict past centuries. If these want to pay the benefit of water on a permit Syria requires aggression. China can economically Russian can the right national economic water security competition is different. When the United States about the geographic advantage of private security those stable shore we did power Europe with the United States without the US willing to military partners have their farm flung the West Civil calendar, the extreme military company regional powers, and Russian IP up now ban at 15. Russia ran the cyber against US out of pressure level. Target US civilian proliferating electric property. Gun and leverage cyber intrusion and cyber spread over 10,000 Russian intruders 2050 Moscow and Caribbean Con. Russia is targeting to hit the US and Russian cyber threat and Russia radio previously said until the government the people of Russia will not be herein. This step is crucial to power efforts. Booz Allen Hamilton 13. Russia has to be on over the economy to research dependent on resources foreign. Russia foreign intelligence supporting product modernization, creating development, economy, defense, technology, secrets, for the U.S. and government network, China, Russian military demand, worth billions in. That causes Russian aggression. Action on 15. 100 new Russian aircraft taking the rolling up assembly 10,000 troops shown up running the Russian military name, the NATO top area of Russia, and the United Nations 1 million strong military beef out of Russia is opening a military base in the Arctic, place station bomb regular base in Caribbean Gulf of Mexico, military base along Bay airfields, the security countermeasures compared to come under pursuit defined course in Ukraine and Mexico, the peace process with mass military, the middle of region economic potential beyond the limit, and nuclear escalation we're already on to bring the war, read 15. In which war, Putin relied on most first attack nuclear tactical weapons across the extent of Western alliance, the United States challenge opposing the nuclear Russian expansion over counter, bomb service secretary for the close support of running out of Ukraine and the military Putin reduced cutting into warning, setting people free, the Polish water with land ready nuclear weapons only, the Danish ship technology united from the Lord, the threat nuclear weapon, the Russian nuclear weapon, the risk of the total water once I lose, never definitely I who wants to survive the coming years, Putin's coming in terror rather than the breaking nuclear standard where the ringing miscalculation, large Putin aggressive military pressure against the nuclear threat and nexus critical infrastructure. Effective information sharing grants devastating attacks on critical infrastructure, Bush 15. Many organizations face sabotage as soon as the attack alerted multiple every single company. They use the product breakers and critical infrastructure on information. The government partner and the national and the law enforcement community very difficult because the race and the people come to it's not possible to stop the information shared between the company the information but not the contract that happened and issued not better recent logic coming in. 0 days are key in active cooperation with the electricity and water sector, softening Goldman 13. Zero-day exploits a separate information contributions to widespread physical damage, widespread weaponized zero-day targeting air traffic tools to extend the false signal planes, the air attack on the electric grid, and tower region, the company darknet, incapacitating the conference audience, miscalculating most planes, zero-day exploiting the targeting criminal infrastructure sectors, air traffic control, and other transport data considered critical infrastructure along chemical, immediate emergency efforts, financial, water, power, nuclear reactor sectors, private civil company operating critical infrastructure, industrial, control system, internet connectivity, running system, motions up with zero-day exploit, the government has failed to provide sufficient support to private companies, safeguard nations, critical infrastructure, and attacks take out command and control leads to nuclear retaliation until 412. That's our protect and take out civilian conduct for the same grid of spots to the open barrier, the military base and country commanding control, can go dark barrier, so shut down complete. That's our protect against U.S. PPD, seen after war, can lead to full-scale U.S. military response to nuclear weapons and U.S. water security on the brink now, DIVIC 14. A nationwide trend to groundwater declines across the United States, groundwater cleaning, recent increase around 2,000 incompetent water fracking, already current drivers in the United States, hacking, while the USA drilled and breached expanding drought, and drought was groundwater cleaning, water supply, field farming, and scarcity, and set the table social unrest, and water supplies, vulnerable cyber attacks, Skinner 15. Homeland Security Department having port security among the nation water utility network and adequately protected by stable and cybersecurity program and the NFL small territory configuration effectively discovered some of those can exploit safety vulnerabilities. The body of the police can be used by back to the product level of acceptably high end. Water and security versus global war, Allen 3615. Water shortage in 10 years could destabilize various civilians the country. It was a major global security. People tend to whatever they want to survive changes. Or like cause new kinds of global water security flow become major transmitted water issues. Major river drought was civilization threat. Use still indicated process water sources threat to be considered a long-term weapon mass destruction. Access to water plays pivotal role in every Israeli common world. The largest crisis is a serious one on the planet. The United States federal government should substantially curtail its domestic surveillance of computer software vulnerabilities or exploits unknown to relevant vendors' nexus solvency. The plain sense effective information shared between government and private sector are clear. A signal clear committed is key cooperative cyber defense overcomes legal barriers. Roger 12. A secret foreign policy debate cybersecurity public-private partnership resolved around the child effectively sharing security information. Resolve barriers effective public partnership with complex cyber limited government ability to share the code of information. Government against collecting information used sort of method classified disclosure risk compromise the method stigmatized disclosure competent post newer post 9/11 hence information shared to private sector was a federal partner to provide timely and national cyber threat alert information. Private sector and everything receives security claims required accurately and after bonding classified the threat information to problem one's policy rather than low. These problems allow can be once allowable one equivalent and curtailing 0 days disarmed cyber attacks, Masnick 14. Then say Buzz law 0 days exploit to make the internet weaker resort. Not going to see China give us 0 days just because we do. It's meaning that no one expected China to Russia and it was give us 0 days closing is like disarming both sides because it takes a while to be out of service like building better defense for the world and disclosing vulnerabilities amounts to disarming. The NSA 0 days are key. Kell et al. 14. The agency stockpile about security holes discovered a layer exploited vulnerabilities, collecting information, affect devices and malwares, vulnerability, combination, ordinary to open and attack humanity, was discovered, learned about a false stamina, market information about security, vulnerabilities, programming, zero day exploit, really covered, they covered because much of the protected server attack unknown and weakness, even capital exploit and discovered a vulnerability, master, vulnerability, dismantled, when I say discovered a vulnerability, as strong discovered, is prominently SCSI vulnerability covered to the companies, and the company will pass on the vulnerability stockpile its own purposes, and SCSI and the vendor so that they can be fixed. Cross-links.
Okay. So what is 0 days?
Okay, so 0 days are exploits within a company's system that that the NSA they secretly hack into and they use it to spy on. But the company does not know of the security and exploit flaw that is in their system.
So what is the plan trying to do?
The plan was trying to, of course, was trying to solve the advantages, but what it's specifically doing, it's curtailing the domestic surveillance of the computer software vulnerability, so it's not going to spy on these 0 days, and 2, it's going to make these exploits known to the companies so that our advantages can be
So in
solved.
your first advantage, what is the internal link?
What is the internal link?
Yeah.
Okay, so our internal link is that there is Russian IP theft now, and Russia has been trying to hack into the U.S.'s military documents per se. So through these 0 days, they're able to gain access to the F-35 or just a military military devices that will increase Russian aggression.
So what kind of IP theft?
What kind of IP theft? Specifically for Russia, anything that will increase their aggression, make them feel more powerful.
Or on 6 evidence, the one I see specifically talks about military evidence, like plans that the U.S. military might do, or what the U.S. military operates on, and that is key to the U.S. aggression that Shanshal talks about.
Okay. So you say that in your second advantage, you did make 14 evidence. So U.S. water security on the brink now.
Yeah.
So what's happening with our water security? So why does 0 days have a link to water security?
So it has a link to water security because a lot of the water, these systems, especially now, water and electricity, they're run through the internet and through these and through computer systems. So they're going to have a lot of them have exploits, which we have a card saying that. So
which card?
The Danger 15 card specifically talks about the vulnerabilities, specifically of 0 day vulnerabilities, and how they're exploited by hackers and other entities that can take out water supplies.
yeah, so if they are hacked, they can take it on a massive system. And then we have our Tilford evidence, which says that just taking down a water supply large enough can be seen as an act of war and lead to nuclear retaliation. So, and there's also the impact of just water insecurity in general, not having water. People will fight to survive. So,
What's the impact to your first advantage?
First advantage, so we first just have the Great Power War from just the taking of the IP, and then we have a specific Russian scenario which has all the evidence that is specific to Russia, saying how Russian aggression is increasing now, and if they gain military info, that'll even cause more Russian aggression. It'll cause them to want to attack. They'll feel more powerful in the U.S. and it'll cause them to want to attack the U.S.
Okay. So what is the U.S. doing?
What is the U.S. doing
What
right
is
now?
What is it going to do?
What's it going to do? Our plan text, like I
Yeah,
explained
very
before.
specific.
So.
Running prop or no prop? No prop?
No.
How many out?
4 off.
You have a flash drive?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all there's to see else. The other one, we have this box that we know.
Okay, round 5, Wednesday, LCC. Harder to get out. You guys ready for that?
Yeah, I spent up
Yeah, there's some problem.
Yeah. LCC round 4.
Round 5, Wednesday.
Yeah, round 5.
Starts with counterpoint. Yes.
I want to.
Round 5.
Let's see.
Alright, get ready?
You all decided to go flash now. You're not important. Straight up.
So the highlighted version is on the side of it.
What am I looking at right now here?
Oh, it's underlined.
Actually, I can figure that out.
What's the name of the document? Small.
Oh, round 5.
I got it. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
All not.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Alright. Everyone ready?
We're on the case debate. Are you going to control?
4 off.
Just 4 up?
4 off in case.
Where are we?
Oh,
Is
the
that-
order
is that-
game, ordering of the one C, so inherency, IP theft, critical infrastructure, all two. Oh yeah. Now we're doing it.
First is the counterclaim. United States federal government should conduct a full public investigation into the domestic surveillance of Americans by United States intelligence agencies. This investigation should be modeled after the Truth Committee headed by Senator Ron Wyden and tasked with producing a report to Congress to outline recommendations for appropriation, legislation, and regulatory reforms. The counterclaim solves the case and is net beneficial. First, it results in sustainable reforms and rebuilds public trust in the government. Church Committee 1114. We encourage Congress to create a church committee for 21st century undertakes our own public examination and intelligence practice and make sure that specific recommendations for free to oversight and reform congressional actions are really needed to restore faith in citizens in the federal government. Ready for independent and public congressional investigation into the period of crisis of public confidence. Church committee for 21st century urges it needed. Confidence of public and federal government is at stake. And second, investigation before legislation is the only way to avoid circumvention. The counterplan solves and the plan doesn't. Bump 13. Applicants for the surveillance point out what the NSA is doing is legal. NSA and the secret court interpret law and allow NSA all activity of members of Congress are not supposed to challenge this interpretation. Know that NSA is massaging laws to meet their needs. What legislation might prevent that? Advocating transparency above all. So people need to know what's happening. Long-term legitimacy, but investigate first, then legislate later for better understanding of specific proposals without further exploration of what's actually going on. It's different draw policy. You can't fix your surveillance system unless you know that your surveillance system needs to be fixed. And going on to the dis side, Obama is pushing for a clean spending bill, and support from Ryan is key, but GOP will be the swing vote. Wong and the Lillis 11-3. Ryan refused to rule out attaching riders to an omnibus spelling bill for driving confrontation with President Obama in the House and Senate appropriators. What we need to pass omnibus spending bill to prevent government shutdown by December 11th. Obama and Democrats are insisting on clean spending bill for riders or poison pills. Government will prevent pressing GOP leaders to attach a slew of amendments, including one to defund Planned Parenthood. And their planned failure results in shutdown. Riders will kill the bill. Cordell 11-6. Congress has still decided how to appropriate funds by December 11th. Government should still let down 12 bills that likely to be amended. All 12 bills have to pass through both houses and be signed. Most recent budget passes have centered on riders within bills that could court vetoes. This is a series of landmines. President has proposed a veto of every single one of them. Policy rider draws a vote. Budget process grinds to another all. Last chance will be made out of 12 appropriations through the House and by the President by December 11th. Deadlines add significant challenge for Congress. Every bill pending is a potential vehicle for riders. And shutdown kills the economy and disrupts multiple U.S. sectors. OMB 13. Shutdown will force GDP. Shutdown halted transportation, energy, hinder trade, export license. Disrupt private sector lending banks. But not access government SSN. Halt loans to business homeowners. Delay fishing season. NOA was unappropriate. Disrupted tourism by closing parks, and that causes global war. Harris and Burroughs 9. Terrorist groups will become radicalized in absence of economic ally drawdown. Could lead to states new arrangements and nuclear ambitions. Conflict and terrorism could lead to unintended escalation for oriented flight times. May focus on preemption, lead to escalating crisis and conflict to reemerge perceptions resulting in conflict and cooperation to manage resources will likely be increasingly difficult. And going on to the next is that honeypots are in place now in more corporations made to protect them from 0 days. Win 326. Two categories are honeypots production honeypots and research honeypots. Production honeypots are primarily intended as sensors or decoys and supplement existing security mechanisms on product network. Research and honeypots are intended to attract attackers, sustain attack versus 0-day exploits not directly available to average business organizations. Are believable to attack. And removal of 0 days removes honeypots no longer have used. Round 13. Honeypots have excellent early warning. They can easily capture 0-day exploits. Great open source and commercial honeypots projects are alive well. Can emulate literally thousands of vulnerabilities and intended to be a web crawler recognition that today's attackers frequently use search engines to find innocent websites to affect it. And honeypots are a key to prevent cyber terror. Spitzer 3. Honeypots are most powerful with the new technology with credible potential. You can do everything from detecting new attacks never seen before in the wild to tracking automated credit card fraud and identity thefts. Honeypots can apply far more dangerous and devastating threats at advanced and style. Often these individuals are not after computed for more specific information, more dangerous and far more difficult to mitigate. And going on to the K, the affirmative procedural approach to government overreach inscribes the illusory nature of liberal legalism that ignores foundational dynamics of security. Marginals and Metcalf 11. Legal scholars here are protected or representative of legal policies are temporary departures from hypothesized peacetime rules. Bad things happen to the nation until it fixes the problem. It will never happen again until it does. It becomes the dominant narrative to cast for role of hero judges who we restore the legal order, legal academy, ignore the tendency to demonize others during moments of perceived threat. It became flawed understanding, believes that political structure adapt their behavior to a law change. Everybody can share acceptance of primacy of law and exclusion of underlying dynamics of down the narrative protection change and redemption. We have seen retreat and retreatment. And the affirmative employs a militarized discourse of cybersecurity that inflates threats and ignores dangerous vulnerabilities. Reject the securitization of cyberspace. Calvin 12. Realization of cybersecurity simulates a reality governed by the office of difference that does not exist. Overrated threats. There's no cyber attacks that result in very few effect on property. Risk can be dealt with individual entities, facts, disregarding policy circles are overrated. Level of threat must be seen in the competition by stating that urgent need for action, describing the threat as being a rising propensity is disproportionately afraid of these despite their low probabilities, which translate into a pressure action and media distorts that threat perception. And going on, the impact is permanent warfare. Security and fear-driven politics create the enabling conditions for violence. Jeremy 6. A practice target against constructive the other enemy within or without comes to formalize legitimizing into a war permeates political process, defining influence, exacting answerability, a public sphere of discourse, crucial acknowledge continuities in social and political life that are enabling conditions. This is global war and legitimization is achieved through discourse of balance between security and liberty. Antagonism is directed to distinct and particular others. Production of fear, low rate of expeditionary at service practices constitute war and locates the discourse at the heart of politics. War permeates discourse on policies in terms of demands on security against exercise public life adhere to a combat discourse of institutive continuity and vote negative to refuse the technical debates about national security in favor of subjects the 1AC and favor subjecting the 1AC's discourse of rigorous democratic scrutiny. Ron 12. Security judgments may be marked fundamentally by epistemological uncertainty, procedural to mistakes, the question of politics for one lab practices are product of background political judgments about threats and democratic majorities of legal reforms initiatives to centralize power. And going on to the case. First of all, on here, the government already disclosed the small business not doing so hurts their own systems that are 15. When it withholds information about software vulnerabilities to exploit the target system, believes every other system that uses the same software also available being hacked, including U.S. government computers and critical infrastructure. And going on to IT threat, Russian modernization focused on nuclear deterrence and working now ITAR, TAS, 2012. The situation begins in 2006. Defense already came out nuclear type increased by more than 5 times financing, by 4.5. As a result, infrastructure has been restored. And advancement of technology allows for citizens to be more aware of the enemy with less government bias. New apathetic awareness makes it difficult to go where as in 14 Democrats tend not to go to war with the very fact of liberal democracy is correlated against a decrease in war. Russian nuclear defense is critical to prevent U.S. attack, which escalates in the administrative Traveling to 07. Numerous scenarios, everything begins as local conflict rapidly deteriorating total conflict. Ultimately, it will be sent to Russia. Russia will refuse and its raiders. Infrastructure will be wiped out by that. So refuse of our demands will be met with mass aviation. Going on to critical infrastructure, reject the doom and gloom prediction. Redundancies extract major collapse. The Hodgin 15
Systemic is not an easy thing to do, probably not. It's the only thing that very few nation states redundancies. We shouldn't be slaves to doom and gloom and low probability of attack, difficulty and cost. Written in Buchanan 14. Computer network exploitation requires preparation and analysis of abilities to require breach of specific network can be useful. Clue in the attribution process started. Attack was highly labor intensive. Zero attack of the effective cyber attack. Lin 14. Fear doesn't seem to match the hype.
Hey, first we start cross-section. What was the first card you read on case on fantasy?
There's only one card.
Yeah, where I don't see it.
Zetter 15. Maybe.
Zetter.
If it's not there, I'll do it right now.
Yeah, can you please send that out?
Yeah.
So in case you run Zetter, and then you run Giving Blue card, is that it?
What? No. Okay, here.
Anytime with that, you got it. And then you start using
Okay. Wait. Go low probability.
Yeah, you understand what's it.
And then I started Lin 14. You don't have the You don't have the IP test?
I mean, it's not like it's too much of cards that aren't highlighted.
Yeah. Okay, it's the Russian. This one,
Read the
Aziz,
ITAR.
Aziz.
You just read ITAR and Aziz.
That's it, right?
That's all I
That's all we got.
And Sherbin. At all.
The Russian nuclear deterrence?
Yeah.
Just send out that one.
Yeah. There's
Do you want the link card at height?
Yeah.
I'll say it.
I got it.
Code card for the one that's verified.
Okay. Cross-legs?
Yeah.
Hey, what's the net benefit for the counter plan?
Politics.
Politics how?
Because what the plan does is plan fails, results in shutdown. The Wyden counter plan avoids that, obviously.
How does it avoid that?
Yeah, how does it work?
Okay, because we use
A process, right? How does that avoid it?
exactly, because we use first we have to use investigations. This is through the intelligence committee is headed by Senator Ron
I
Wyden.
understand what the counter plan does. How does it avoid politics? Like, you don't read any card on it, like, how does it avoid politics? What is the net
At
benefit?
least explain to us very briefly.
Oh, that's circumvention, because we're saying that your plan
So
is
the benefit's not politics?
Yeah, it's
Well-
either politics or circumvention.
circumvention.
Okay, Ian, read circumvention. Let's go on to politics. What's the link? There's no link card here.
Your plan failure results in shutdown. I can read it. No,
Is there a link at all?
yeah, there is a link. It's a link to your plan.
What card?
All it says is every bill pending is a potential vehicle.
Cordell
That's-
11-6. It says plan failure results in shutdown.
Yeah, what plan failure? Like, what does that card literally just talks about shutdown. So where's the link?
That is the link.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's move on to honeypots. So it says, so you say honeypots are meant to give out zero
Okay,
day
so
exploits.
honeypots are like meant. They're probably intended as like sensors or decoys.
Yeah,
so they-
our app gives out what the zero day exploits are. How is this disadd inherent?
Okay, so the removal of the 0 days, like infrastructure or activity.
But we release the exploits to the companies is what your whole disadd is about.
Right. So
We release the exploits, so what makes honeypots unique anymore?
because it's still key to prevent cyber terror.
Okay, let's move on to, what's the link on the security kit?
That's that Capital 12 card. It does a really great job
Can you explain?
of talking about. Okay, yeah. It talks about how you employ a military discourse of cybersecurity, how you inflate threats, and
How
so
do we
you're saying
inflate threats?
you're making it seem like cybersecurity is impending. All the
Cybersecurity isn't, I don't get how that's inflating threats.
How is that not inflating? You're saying that cybersecurity is now making it all big, making it seem like it's gonna like.
Okay, but if it's real, how have you proven that our threats aren't real?
So you're saying that we'll attack utilities like water utilities?
Okay.
If it's so easy to attack these things, why hasn't it happened before? Like, why are we just stopping water flow? Like, like every other day.
Okay, so let's move on to the alternative. It says to refuse technical debates about national security. So then what are we supposed to talk about in this debate with the domestic surveillance topic?
I figured if you're rejecting all debates about national security, what do we do?
Technical debates.
Technical. What do you define as technical?
Cybersecurity, for example, is great.
So just
what
cybersecurity?
can we talk about?
Yeah.
Well, anything other than cybersecurity.
Anything other than so you're just living out cybersecurity. That's
Well-
the only one that has inflated threats. Okay.
Look, we're gonna take prep.
Tomorrow, if you want, can you be at Peninsula's house?
Show what time you're gonna get her phone.
I'm gonna bring it around 7.
7?
I think you should jump in those things. This is not possible for close relationships. It starts at 9, so 7. Because if not, it's not doing it.
I guess I could. I can try talking to my parents about sleeping a little bit. Probably sleeping over at Rose's house. They were gonna sleep at Rose's house.
Oh, right. Are you staying as well?
I'm gonna try to. That's gonna be what I object to. The only problem is I would maybe need to drive to get more clothes. And then stay home with my parents.
And I'm learning that.
So, interesting story about that one. Did I stay up in my boyfriend's house? It's for the purposes, of course. Yeah. Stay there, 'cause if you don't get class,
I have to drop it off.
that's good for my part. Yeah. Almost. No, no. Sure. You can say it.
Let's talk about
4:45.
you want it first? The order, flashback, the order is going to be case in the order of IP theft, critical infrastructure, and then solvency. And then K. And then the long-term plan, and then politics, and then honeypots. Yeah.
Can you you repeat the alternate?
Yeah, so it'll be after case, it'll be K, counterplan, politics, honeypots.
It's Russia or the Russia IP theft stuff, infrastructure solvency.
Yes, it is.
Can you get the order on this again?
IP theft, infrastructure, solves. Everyone have it? Okay.
Are you ready?
On top of IP theft. They fundamentally they don't understand our advantage. They read these Russian modernization arguments. They don't make any sense in the context of this debate. They're saying Russian modernization is important. Cool. Awesome. Russian modernization is important. What matters is the impacts that come from our advantage. They read no impact defense. So you have to mention 100% missing impact. Shannon talks about Russian aggression happening now, and Reed talks about how that can lead to nuclear escalation. How that can lead to nuclear escalation, like their evidence talks about. Their evidence has nothing to do with the progress of the debate. And Bennett specifically talks about that Russia's IP theft now, and that Hamilton talks about that theft is key to the powers. They don't read any cards on IP theft that actually matter, because Russian modernization sounds like a counter plan that benefit, and there's no counter plan that's benefiting, so that doesn't make any sense. Not a critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is on the brink now. Risk of cyber attacks has surpassed terrorism as the biggest threat. This is Salty 14. The U.S. government strategy encouraged hacking and failing to disclose software companies and obscure customers and vulnerabilities exploited by push attacks. The money to offense lawyers. Some down research away from the work on defense. America's offensive is classified information. The U.S. become the dominant player, fostering the shadow. We've got large scale market. The defense contractors of the nation spend at least tens of millions of dollars a year on exports. However, them obstacle capabilities of the U.S. companies and there's not risk of the U.S. vulnerability. It's obligation to use it's supposed to be some mechanism deciding how they use the information, but there's security special years become the greatest threat in the country that the better information sharing on risk is crucial. When the U.S. nation knows about a vulnerability does not work in public, there can be unique unintended consequences. You can also crossify this honeypots flow when it gets there, but that their honeypots things obviously don't work. You need to fix the problem now. That's what our plan goes to. But on IP theft or on critical infrastructure, they read this doom and gloom card, which is a sweeping card. Doesn't make sense. The threats are obviously there real now. It's just a sweeping card. Then they read this read Buchanan card. This is a low probability attack, but there still is a probability. Gator specifically talks about the water supplies being vulnerable because of 0 days, and that probability is there. And also they don't read nothing on electric grids. Electric grids are uniquely vulnerable because of 0 days, and I'll talk on that later. Now, extend solvency. They don't contest the solvency at all. If you have 100% risk of solvency, now it's okay. The role of the ballot is to endorse dynamic policy making and recognize the importance of what we say, how we say it, and envision what the world would look like if we advocate it. The net benefits the brand tunnel vision and overemphasis on one method such as discourse with the negative emphasis on. This allows us to weigh our after key fairness, alternative frameworks, mute the money, see make it impossible, the app internal links, it replicates hierarchy domination. They securitize the app and it links them to their own K. They say that our securitization will lead to nuclear war, and that in itself is securitization. They link to their own K. It doesn't make any sense, and they don't know what action has to be taken or what's going on to happen after. The judge can't say exactly what the alt does or how. That's not a viable option to vote on. In cross-text, literally all they can say is that we can't read our app. They have no idea what their alternative does. It has no solvency. This K makes no sense. And evaluate using util. It encompasses all impacts as Isaac and 2. Purity of intention is not shown achievement of one intents in a world where real lines, moral purity, implicit and just policies about unintended consequences. This affects rather than the motives of the same making off the pursuit of good util. And perm do both. Even highly critical studies of security are open to articulating alternative visions of security. We can perm do both to effectuate reconstruction of security. That's McDonald, Browning, and London. Human security is a living better understood as a problem-solving organization, such fellowship, which directly articulates the vision of the good regard to security falls outside of the rest of the limits. Some function will be articulate international progress regarding such conception as evident in such commitment to the open space for communities to articulate alternative visions of security in the case of critical constructionism and to commitment to resist the loss of security altogether. And perm do the alt in all other instances. Either the alt is too weak to overcome the small instance of securitization of the app, or the residual link is too small to make a difference,
politics, and only engaging the state could possibly reduce new security discourses as moves on in 4. In traditional realism, there was a deceit behind the politics become appreciation more than the different actors. This becomes problematic realism. The line of defense would that be in most areas of politics there are states and principal stories, but who are the biggest players in the relation? Who are the people who have any kind of control? If you discount the state away from politics, you cannot eliminate politics to push the state away, to push politics away. It's not going to have any results. Politics is a permanent condition in the system. The state is still an important player game. And case that weighs and turns the game. 0 days hurts military operation critical mission causing a war that will nuclear leads to infinitely more deaths not line for any change to actually occur. The critique will never access the impact, and if the affirmative even wins 1% of the impact, the alternative can never happen in a world where we're all dead. The athletes try to die. And they absolutely have no limit. This knowledge that when I see this problem, we're not back. We don't endorse securitization. We don't advocate for the attack on others in order to better this, but rather attempt to restore trust in companies and solve this potential problem. And dogmatic realism leads to universal truth that's quantum saying in one. It's important to distinguish dogmatic realism from critical realism. Whether the theories can be true or false, rigorous scientific research movement progressively towards the true phenomena of dogmatic realism. We have current theories correspond exactly to reality version of positivism, which reveals individual observations of all data that influence world science. Cosmology, that's Wyden 7. Reject our right that we need to commit ourselves to any particular cosmological position. This does not mean that we are able to make conformity to absolute uncertainty and absolute doubt or impossible position to hold. To say that our concept of uncomfortable is not accepted that way, determine the physicality of what exists or can, in all cases, help in object from existing. We describe the world in certain ways, and that those descriptions play a role in how we interact with the world. In order for any object to function as a cable, it has to have certain properties that can fulfill that role. The world cannot simply be discarded. And perm to the plan of the alternative and all others. Since skip this next card. And in the world of the alternative, the impacts of the atom, negative, inevitable, view them as a net benefit to the perm, and security discourse is inevitable. It's Williams in 3. Covering school with security decisions, social responsibility, intrinsic, political life, and not decisions continue to produce themselves according to the friends and enemy entities. Says a securitization must be understood as both an existing reality and continual possibility. And even if discourse focus is important, reality exists. And their meta-theoretical philosophizing hampers action and literal to lemon. We have a summary conceptual categories of affirmative, seeking very narrow policy question, negative, racist question, ontological, or not confronting the policy question by taking this epistemological or ontological approach to shit's passing the night. Social construction can kill, can be socially destructive, social construction have material components that the social construction does not mean that there are missiles being deployed and that those missiles are not going to go off. Epistemological question, what nonsense are they are spouted? You should be very critical of those are critical, deeply embedded commitments are impossible because watch counter action, you have to look at how practice exchange rather than intellectual arguments, not only the counterpoint.
Perm do planned and
Oh, perm do after all. Like you have to do the affirmative first, address the actual threats before we can aim anything. That's along with the try or die argument. Not only the counterpoint. They think their counterplan, the net benefit to the counterplan is politics, and we ask them in politics, and they just change it to circumvention. Okay, circumvention is like a weird a weird net benefit because the counterplan is literally the same thing with a little revision process that won't solve for circumvention at all in any way, can perm do both. But high political cost ensure compliance. Bradley, Duke Law Professor Morrison, Columbia Law Professor 13. Maybe difficult distinction between legally normative connection and other normative connections. This is not a sharp distinction between law, government, conventional authority, laws not taken for granted by precedent, follow judicial reason. The reason why precedent by criticism has connection to barter, and executive obligation to apply judicial decision. Itself part of the practice-based of constitutional law of the United States, professionally combined with the obligation to demonstrate that such law can, in fact, in the president. You have to look at like post-noted circumvention won't happen. Our plan text specifically makes it impossible to circumvent, so their counterplan isn't necessary, and if it is, you confirm to both, there's no net benefit. Like circumvention is not a net benefit, it's a problem with our plan, it's not actually a problem. Now under politics. Literally, they don't read a link, so this DA doesn't matter, but I'll lead to a reason of evidence. Anyway, like they have no link to our answer, doesn't matter. But Omnibus isn't passing, start this card. Riders are even stalling out the introduction of this bill into Congress, like Schultz, Bloomberg 212.3. Plus, riders under the bill are custom negotiating the upcoming omnibus bill, spending bills, solid casting, whether Congress will be able to clear the bill over government funding exercise the death penalty, McCollum, notice the funding of the environmental protection agency, told Bloomberg and the partner checking offers on disability, PA funding bill, tried on for times running on over voting inside operating of ordinance, and the House and the Senate told Bloomberg be in it, it's still unclear whether the omnibus bill will be released. And there's a bunch of numbers that are going on in Congress now. Their evidence is a month late. This is what's going on in Congress now. So Obama will spend political capital on this, not their dissent. Their dissent doesn't matter even though they don't like. Healthcare repeal is one. Spoke for the Senate passed an amendment to strengthen Obamacare repeal legislation, including the path for GOP, sending the message to Obama, the heart of Obama, and refugees. Republicans and dozens of from yesterday. Republicans and dozens of Democrats back legislation on policy acceptance of refugees until legislation. I consider that they are a threat against politics found in block legislation. Democrats have introduced legislation aiming at bolstering BC white water program. Skip the next few cards. Bipartisan smoke parameters restrictions, recent votes previous COCA 612. House voted to pass restrictions on intelligence community with protected state Americans being spied on. Amendment not being passed without a partisan vote. Intelligence community official confirmed regardless that law enforcement should contend intercept outdated probable cause for the normal cause. And their honeypots decide like our plan is literally the same thing. If we just and 0 days honeypots doesn't matter. We have shown through our Ginter evidence in our Shanishov evidence and the evidence of 1AC that there are actual threats of honeypots clearly aren't working. So the only way to actually save cybersecurity, what their DA is trying to do, is through our plan. Their disad literally doesn't make any sense. Back on the politics really quickly, they have no links, so you can't really evaluate this disad, and it's not unique whatsoever. Whenever you're ready.
What do you find it? What do you define as dogmatic realism in the case?
Right, so our quant and sane card specifically talks about how looking at like real ways to actually.
But what does that mean? What does dogmatic realism mean?
I mean, like the card specifically defines it as like believing current theories would correspond exactly to reality, and so like reality is real. Like that's where literal.
So in terms of the app, what would dogmatic realism pertain to?
Okay, you can like pair this with the literal card. Literal specifically talks about that like while like discourse may be important, like you're talking about, reality is a thing. The app recognizes that reality or the risk of any impacts actually happening, and we have to act on that to actually have any action. That goes with the try or die argument. That we can't address your discourse argument, and we're all dead. We have to like address these threats being real, which literal specifically talks about. And we also have like a pragmatic view. That's what White talks about in the card. How pragmatism is the only way to actually change anything.
Okay, how would you evaluate the using utility in your Isaac 2 card? I'm just asking you something.
Okay, so the affirmative talks about lives that can be lost because of the internal milkshakes that you didn't contest. So we have to assume they're true. I mean, we'll extrapolate them later more if you would like. But because the affirmative can save those lives and your critique can't because.
Okay, what does perm do to all other instances mean?
Okay, so we do the AF, and then when we're not doing the AF, we do all other instances. So if there's any chance you have any solvency, even though your all makes no sense, we can access it. Because
How?
there's no reason why you can't do both.
Okay. So they're not mutually exclusive, you're saying?
Not mutually exclusive, but what do you, like, the AF and the all?
You said
It's perm do AF, like it's a both argument. You can do the AF and all instances do the all.
Okay, can you explain the warning in your Buzan 4 card?
The Buzan card is that you have to go through the state. I mean, you want me to find a warrant for you?
Alright, it's alright.
Traditional realism, there's a distinction between high and low politics, and there's on the realist side of defense would be that in most areas of low politics, states are still the principal authorities. You can't just disregard the state because the state is the one that has
Was the Bradley card the only thing you read on the comp plan?
No, I mean, first I said that you have no net benefit on your comp plan.
No, the card. Was the card the only?
Oh yeah, the Bradley was the only card I read,
Okay,
and I had
yeah.
a lot of analytics in my mind.
Okay, so how does modernization not lead to aggression?
Okay.
How do you define modernization not leading to aggression?
Your cards like don't apply to the disadvantage. You say like
They do, because they apply to aggression, and that's exactly
Right,
what
you say modernization is really important, like nuclear deterrence, but like that has nothing.
So are you
to do
saying
with
modernization
decisions.
doesn't lead to aggression? Like a modernization of Russia?
I mean, I think aggression's happening now, so I don't think that matters. Like we have our Stanislav evidence is specific that Russian aggression is happening right now because they're stealing IP theft, trying to become the great
But you
power.
can do that without modernization. Is that what you're saying?
No, like I'm.
But how is okay? So if you
I mean,
can't.
yes, Russia's modernizing right
Okay,
now.
so yeah, okay, so fine. So okay, great. Okay,
guess
going on to
Russia's
critical.
modernizing.
Okay, going on to critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
How do you define why is cyber attack bigger than terrorism? Like, attacks in Paris, attacks in Homeland, like in San
Okay,
Bernardino.
because our
How is
evidence
that?
has specific claims that can affect more than just this small niche group right now. Like the technology is ahead of time. We're not saying terrorism doesn't matter like terrorism. I'll take up terrorism.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. Actually, never mind. It's fine.
All right.
Okay. I'm gonna take prep time too.
Yeah, prep now for the pregnancy.
Hold on, let me step up.
So yes.
Yeah.
you have 602. It's okay. I'll flash you the minimum wage.
What are you saying?
So you have 602 left? Yeah.
What's gonna be the difference in order was?
Honeypots, security, and gifts. In the order of fulfillment.
Bless you.
Bless you. Hang on.
Was Honeypot security case?
Yeah.
Case in the order of going to IC.
Yeah. Your Russia stuff and then critical infrastructure. Is it on which flash? Long evening. watch, but yeah, watch it.
Set your headphones now.
I don't know.
Oh, he needs the flash strength, right?
Where did you go?
Here.
No, that's not true. This is so much faster.
What's your Honeypots, security, and then case in the order of the ones? So that would be the Russian critical
Now you're already.
Oh no.
We're on that.
On the Honeypots, they say there's real threats right now. However, power grid is attacked twice a week anyway, no impact, 12 and 325. The U.S. Central Power Grid faces physical and online attacks approximately once every 4 days. From 2014, the U.S. Department of Energy received 362 reports from electric utilities or physical cyber attacks that interrupted power service in 2013. The Department of Homeland Security branch reported 160 cyber attacks on the energy sector. Most of the nation's power infrastructure has poor defenses, only security, camera, and feds. What it's showing is that it faces all of these attacks, and there's no impact without it because it happens twice a week anyway. Nothing's ever happened already. Extender Win 326 card that shows that Honeypots already solved for the issue. That they're saying that it's the same as the case. No, it's not. In our Win 23 and Grimm's 13 evidence, it shows that it's Honeypots are a computer program that allure hackers to the thing so we can stop hackers. The 0 days and Honeypots are not the same thing. Their answers do not really say anything and there's no impact to their threats right now. Now on to security. The critique outweighs and turns the case drive for security cause extinction, sanitize, destruction, accelerates global crisis, environmental degradation, and economic stability, proliferation, and inequality are forced to fit in within the security paradigm. The insurance, military response, and modalities, their solvency claims, militarism, and intervention become a necessary consequence of their framing. Their threat discourse, distraction, massive structural violence. Jackson 12. All the big guys is one con designed to distract you from inequality, sexual violence. You are far more likely to die from the lack of health care than terrorism, iron, North Korea, computer hackers. This is a discussion of security. Besides George threat and serious. Rulers hope that you won't notice increasing inequality, the domestic violence injuries thousands, that poverty, preventable disease kill tens of millions, while heroes of starting military domestic violence programs struggle. Terrorists is more exciting for the media than stories about poor people and discriminating against. Security is misdirection on an epic scale. It functions to convince you are permanently afraid that you will keep the military ticking. Structural violence outweighs. It creates all forms of macro level violence. Springer, professor of geography, University of Otago, 11. Structural violence has some milk violence born discourses that are like the dark matter. They may be invisible, but they are taking course into heaven as one sex explosion of violence because they are the sheer perversiveness and banality. We are frequently liable to seeing that which is most obvious. This marks the epistemological downward spiral as the economic extracting as the real world implication are erased. Orientalism function derives from presently Judas' ability to conceal symbolic violence. Captured the abstraction in theory must be considered an enabling possibilities. Policymakers and legal, now the framework on the K. Policy and legal, intellectual, and restoration of rule as law as positive force bear no relationship to reality. Interrogating flawed understandings of rule of law undermines the true value of the claims and its tangible effects. Our framework argument is not about rhetoric of the what you see, but rather the rhetoric of the judges and policymakers, which makes none of their signs about the judge choice or severing replies. Matai 9.
The rule of law hasn't entered everyday discourse. The term has lost clarity. Connotations of rule of law has been unpleasantly positive. The concept is linked to the democracy, thus becoming indisputable, positively loaded ideal. The rule of law is in convertible limbo, structured to fit every political spectrum as a symbol rather than a real life instruction of engagement. It is necessary for the better understanding of this political weapon as questions its secret status by analyzing its Western cultural artifact connected with the dissuasion of Western political and economic domination. The fails. Richmond 9. Serious issues arise with any attempt to retain modifying corporate liberal peace building. The neoliberal cooperation and liberal peace means that expressionality embraces one transplant. There is serious issue and incapacity of environmental serious instead of engaging liberal and liberalism has become insects and humorous, or Western Indians say that propagating moving beyond these would amount to ontological commitment to the care for others. This has been the place of orthodoxy of offers and an unproblematic right of making policy for unknown others. The judge is a critical intellectual comparing competing methodologies. This outweighs the client's hypothesis enactment because it's irrelevant that we prove the logical justification of the acts is wrong. Critical engagement is substantially important. Their epistemology art has real effects. Security is based on fundamental fear of alterity. Discursive and institutional continuities within delivery spaces like the debate create enable conditions that violence, destruction, and war are core components of society. That's slavery. Beginning discussion of the intellectual level is a more productive empirics proof. Beginning of 5. Look at social movements inside of city agencies. Individuals practice indicate security on their own hands initially, boycott anti-airplane dead for South Africa, campaign against nuclear deployments in Europe, Greenham Common Peace Camp, women's producer cooperatives, paying attention to not the negative enable to nurture community building. Infinite is exemplary on how non-state actors intimidate process later taken up by policymakers. 80s peace movements are examples of intellectuals involved in social movements. Should not suggest that intellectuals should get involved in political action. They could intervene to provide critique. Intellectuals make change even there are a limit. Practice thinking. State-centric approaches rely on the reality out there, but help reinforce statism. No ground laws. They should be prepared to advance their ideology, holding the Afghan versus the Af to narrowly debate targets they can defend. Otherwise, no debate is productive. Anything else conduces racism and sexual discourse. Seeding imagination state of fixes agency and unlocks atrocities. Kepler 95. Focusing dramas of power, pure powerlessness, response leading to powerlessness, citizens feel secure, non-responsibility, seem that absolved from having relation between our actions or organized connection between political decisions of our decision. We think we cannot do anything about war because we are not anywhere decision or made. We are at war even though we don't command the troops. We share responsibility for this violence. Burke fails and its surveillance, warning issue. We need to stable links for Negram, footnoting this set. Darian 95. Stop gap motion is Solomon Gambit with facial state. IR theorists will know the contested nature of realism with the footnote and then business into the amounts of intellectual plea of non-contender, and the IR perhaps gets off easy to commit worse epistemological crimes. Now on to case. They say that the Russian nuclear is militarizing now. What has to do with modernization? It's militarizing now. However, there's no impact because Russian elites know U.S. shipment will return. Questions 11. Like the U.S.-Russian relationship, Russian elite perception of the U.S. power role in the world will have expected great volatility in the 20 years. So how durable is the current Russian perception? Not only the U.S. turning less threatening, but pursuing policies far more accommodating to Russian interests. There is no definite answer, but reviewing the last 10 years or so, since I am the first president, U.S. policies will be important in affecting Russian leaders and elite view. The Russian perception on U.S. power in the role did not change in the last 2 years because Dmitry Medvedev replaced Putin and president of Russia. Russian elites are unsure about the durability of U.S. power capacity, but they have seen the United States renew itself in the wake of global foreign economic examples in the 1980s. Mark the card at 80s. There's no solving the U.S. demands doesn't drive global zero-day use. It is interesting to wonder whether the policy of individually reporting vulnerabilities could disrupt the zero-day industry. Some members of the industry will respond and promptly notify the approximate vendor and security flaw with their products or service. Extend our ITER task part because of the Russian modernization deters war. And their impact is a global war. And if you look to our evidence, it shows that global war will not happen. And there's no impact because that Russian elites know that U.S. strength will return. And extend our Z14 evidence that shows that there's no difference to go for war. There's nothing to go into war. Now the second advantage. They said that cyber attacks are surpassing care. However, even though cyber attacks have no impact in our the thing. If you look to our Tanji 10 evidence, it shows that utilities are unhackable. That's a kind. If it's so easy to turn off the lights, why doesn't it happen more often? This evidence shows is that if it's so easy, why doesn't it happen more? The probability and things are so low. That's our Hodgson 15 evidence and our Ridge 14 evidence. If it's so easy to do, why hasn't it happened yet? Because it's low probability right now. And then the Lynn 14 evidence, there's zero chance of cyber attack occurring right now.
You ready?
Yeah.
So just now in critical infrastructure, you said look at the Tongji evidence. When did you ever read the Tongji evidence? Did you read that? If you did, tell me.
I guess I didn't. I read it right now. I just read the bullet part.
You read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bullet
Oh,
part.
okay, that's fine. On security, why does structural violence outweigh?
Because.
I mean, like, usually, like, structural violence outweighs why?
Oh, okay. So basically, because if you guys try to securitize more, it leads to more things like more violence in the.
No, why does structural violence outweigh our impacts? I think that's your argument you're making.
More harm to citizens.
So structural violence on a small scale is more harm than violence on a big scale?
Yes.
So you're agreeing with Util?
Yeah.
Alright, great, Util.
No.
No, so structural violence, why is it better? Or why does it outweigh? That's fine, okay, that's cool. Your next argument, you say policymakers and legal and intellectuals are the ones who are securitizing. So what does that have to do with our AF? We're not legal intellectuals.
So what we're saying is that in your app, when you try to like securitize cyber, when you kind of prevent
I
the
know what you're
attacks.
saying, like on your framework, you say like it's a problem with like policymakers in Congress. What does that have to do with us?
You're trying to pass a plan that tries to prevent attacks of cyber.
Cool.
war.
Why
So-
is your saying that our plan will lead to extinction because we're securitizing, not an act of securitization in itself? Securitization.
So it's the active securitization that causes all of these things about like,
So-
because you try to do
so let me
something,
explain
you
what it is.
cause the
So
impact.
you're critiquing our securitization by saying that the words we're saying will lead to extinction, and that's not securitization?
It
Right,
is.
That's fine. On the perm, what do you mean by it retains the core ontological assumptions of liberal internationalism? Can you explain that to me in your own words?
Sure.
Your
So.
Richmond evidence.
Hmm?
Your Richmond evidence. And that's your only answer on the perm. Like, why does that matter whatsoever? It doesn't make any sense to me in this context. Alright, that's fine. Let's skip the perm. I guess you don't have to get into the perm. You said like the perm's severance. Why is it severance? Like if we still support our 1AC.
Hmm?
Why is the perm severance if we're still
So
supporting
if it
1AC?
fails, or it's severed.
So why is it severance if the perm fails?
So because then you're.
We're still supporting our 1AC. Alright, that's fine also. You say power grids are attacked twice a week anyway, so there's no impact. Wouldn't that just say the risk of the impacts are open, like if there's a big enough attack?
So we're seeing this evidence is that there's no impact because it happens right now. Because it happens, it hasn't happened.
Great.
A big scale cyber attack
Your
hasn't happened.
Russian modernization evidence, you say Russia deters war from others. What does that have to do with Russia attacking on their own if our evidence specifically shows aggression now? In your evidence of 2011 versus in 2015.
So our evidence shows that there's no, they know that will be a better relationship between the U.S. and Russia, and then they know that U.S. strength will return.
How much got through that? Oh, no, what's it got through that? Can I flip through that?
What in our round 5? Mine fails. It's good, people. Did you get it? Huge mistake coming out of the 2AC. They have not answered any of our impacts. So extend the OMB 13 cars saying that shutdown kills the economy and disrupts U.S. sector. Extend the Harris and Burroughs 9 cars saying that it causes global war. Don't let them try to answer impacts in the way they had 8 minutes to do it. Economic collapse causes terror and resource war and miscalled all go nuclear. That's Harris and Burroughs outweighs the case. Negative controls conflict. Economic ties check conflicts that emerge in the status quo, but those will collapse with the shutdown. Larger internal links to conflict. We have multiple scenarios for instability. The app only isolates one. Faster internal link. Shutdown immediately collapses confidence, causes global ripple effect. App is linear and with critical infrastructure and the Russia example. And this turns case of 1. Cooperation, suspicion, and incentive preserve resources, meaning that cooperation is impossible. 2. Magnifies war, short warning of flight time between the states of war to create to make escalation more likely. 3. Rollback. Shutdown makes and plan it can't be implemented. And 4. Terror. Groups become radicalized without economic outlays. Root cause of terrorism. And line by line, they say that they're not passing in their 1223 car price. And extend the Wong and Lewis 11.3 cars, and it is passing, and that GOP will be the swing vote. And also, their health cares and refugee cards don't answer the DA, so disregard this. And also, they never say they restrict the NSA in their own app, so their bipartisan support color is no. And going on to, here's another unique this card. Ryan convinced that we have a no shutdown, but the GOP is pushing Jones 12-3. I have no reason to believe that we all have government shutdown. Paul Ryan told MSNBC the House is taking lead to keep government funded beyond December 11. Operation is committee working day and night negotiating about riders. Ryan's comments are whistling past the political graver of government shutdown. He put that Republicans continue to submit proposals that are filled with ideological riders. GOP knows its strategy to failure adhere to clean resolution to Jones 12-3 concerted Republican strategy about seeking to use legislation that engage the bar up the bill with the writers. The legislation said president has to be compromised. Republicans need to go back to strategy of trying to pass a budget on party level. They see the process doesn't work. We are hopeful in 9 days of remaining for members of Congress and actually work with Democrats. Oh, my timer's up. Can I use yours? Thank you. Okay, going on to the link debate. They said we have no link, but literally that completely misunderstood our link. That's our Cordell 1165. The riders will try to make amends to the omnibus bill by adding their 0 days plan, and therefore deflating the bill, resulting in shutdown. And here's another focus link. No extension for continuing resolutions following on 1202. Wyden accused Republicans of starting a government shutdown by Ernest slamming a GOP lawmakers right after the largest bill regarding Republicans are attempting to add the end of the year spending bill. And going on, Obama fights against surveillance limits. Any prior support was only designed to increase surveillance and face immediate sunset provisions. SASO 14. Obama with a bipartisan backing insists that NSA surveillance program is key to keeping Americans safe. NSA's collection may have to end entirely because then force lawmakers to make bargaining cable. Obama and House Committee believe that proposals are not NSA's best to retain power, and NSA allies proposing reform don't seem particularly excited. And going on to the impact, economic decline causes the war studies prove royal 10. Economic decline increases likelihood of external conflict and exogenous shocks of the economic tragedy, ensure redistribution of power, at least uncertainty, increases the risk of miscalc, future expectation of trade is high, significant variable expectation of future trade decline, confident increases state building, cloud use force, boomer deaths, micro strong correlation in internal and external conflict, particularly between economic shutdown. Going on to the counter plan. They say the firm doesn't. They say Purdue, but firm doesn't solve. They don't engage in an investigation. In addition, it doesn't restore trust. Counterplan alone is key to rebuild public trust because it reassures the public that Congress has an intelligence agency under the control of permutation, creates the perception of confusion and chaos. Passing the plan before the Wyden committee has a chance to investigate. Doesn't make sense. And the firm doesn't have any benefit. Singular reforms like the plan don't solve without comprehensive overhaul. Rumble 13. Now is the time for Congress to act. We don't need a narrow fix that one part of the Patriot Act. We need a full public accounting of how the U.S. is starting spy technology to on its own citizens. And in addition, their Bradley card only deals with presidential compliance. You can check for yourself. And going on to, they say we have no benefit. We agreed across that yes, circumvention is not benefit. And to avoid circumvention, investigation must precede legislation. And it relies on secret interpretations of statutory authority to justify their actions unless these secret interpretations are scrutinized by Congress. It's impossible to create a cracked, effective policy language. That's bump. Prefer evidence, quote, includes Abdu and Efza, also 2 leading civil liberty attorneys, both agree that new church committee, non-specific policy reform, is the best option for rating in the NSA. Here's more evidence. Con and J clause 13, true accountability. Any responsible committee start with a special investigative committee, a coalition over 100 civil liberty groups agree, and a committee is the right way. American people must make informed decisions about, and a special committee was supposed to be empowered, ability to force a testimony under an ability to issue sanctions for failure of cooperation is best hope. And only the counterplan results include a complete audit of domestic surveillance while circumvention is inevitable. Freezer for 13. With more than a decade around, NSA repeatedly violated laws. No way we can calculate compliance issue. Investigation is urgently necessary. Scale of abuses is substantially hidden. Investigation is the only way to find out.
So you finished? Find it.
Yeah, I didn't read the small card, and that's not going to be brought. The small, from small on, is not going to be brought up for the rest of like the rest of the debate. Thanks, bye.
Well, what time did you get back to sleep for the whole thing? Because I have class for the final. That was Monday at 6:30.
You want to bring your space station, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's going to be a long day.
Okay. Well, I'll try to do that.
It's usually like Peninsula MS is not very big, so. And if we all do it, like,
Then y'all should definitely see.
there's always just like,
I don't think I hear.
it's happening.
I feel like you have it on live. Oh, sorry. I know, I'm like,
It's the coming, seriously. You could do something like this. How about, I would just place that side of it, so that it's not right there. We're going to.
maybe, since I went to get that, but right now I still have like a list of things that I need to get first before it. No way, I have to already do the 03, I mean,
You should see how this is going to.
no, stuff like that, usually like these slow signs. It's so true though, it's like my knowledge of it. We're trying to see some ways. Pictures of little puppy, Delani. Cool, cool, what?
One 21 left.
Yes.
Alright, so the order is going to be critical infrastructure, IP theft, then let's move on to security K, politics.
Yeah.
Anyone need it repeated?
Is there new evidence here? Or-
Yeah, it's one card. Doesn't impact the card. The flash drive is going around.
The only other one about this is the number stores. Maybe that was like the one. No, just this one. Like, it's just the demo. Look kind of small. You want me to open up my laptop so you can see what
Everyone ready? Yes? Hey, beginning.
On critical infrastructure, we were conceived the top, but I've been saying that the attacks won't matter. We're not going for on IP theft. All the evidence, all the evidence, Gushin 11, I'm saying how Russia at least will know U.S. strength will return the one that is old, and Russia has been disobeying the U.S. force and invading Ukraine. The U.S. has been putting sanctions on it, and Russia has been doing nothing about it. So the card doesn't mean anything, and then they have their relevant for it, saying U.S. command doesn't drive global use. So we're talking about domestic, so it is not the global. Then they have the Sharp 15 evidence saying there's a lack of trust. So that we have newer evidence saying Russian aggression happening. That was actually not 15 evidence, which is more new and specific. And specific to what is happening around, and then they have the Sherman 07 and saying which is not true because again Russia IP theft is threatening, and then they have their ITAR card, but all that matters is the impact, which is a nuclear escalation. Nuclear escalation will lead to the structural violence that the K is permanent because it'll severely hurt the poor and the oppressed first, so it'll be hurting those people more, and then this is the biggest impact in the round because actually to actual extinction we the only ones have full exploitation of this round because Russia aggression is increasing now in 0-day exploits. Onto the security gate. They dropped the roll about, which means you're already voting affirmative, which means it has to be the effects of the plan. Then can see it means that everything, all of this has to be the effects of what it's actually doing. But then you have to look at the K and see the lack of even the mention of the alternative, the alternative in the block. There's no explanation, but we don't even know how this is happening. So you have to treat this as a dissent. But at the end of the day, he didn't know line by line, and also you need to look at Isaac 2 evidence, which is you need to evaluate utilitarianism impacts over DC. Who is killing more at the end? Because Crossing was pretty damning during this because they didn't even know why the structural violence was better. He was not even able to answer. So you need to extend perm to both because his only answer is a Richmond 9 evidence saying perm will retain assumption though. Again, he was not even able to explain this, explain in Crossing. And again, when we asked him why is there 7, he was not able to explain. There was no reason why the perm could not solve. You look at our Mac and Browning evidence saying how highly criticized studies are open to different versions of security. People are open to talking about different ways through like the plain text and the security. The perm is the only way to solve it. And then they dropped. Then they have a buzzer for it and saying how only engaging in the state could actually produce a social change because the state's the only one to make change. And you need to extend our Williams theory evidence down, saying how you need reality because it says it's intrinsic to a political life. And again, there was no line by line. There was lack of explanation. You need to wait perm do after and all because the impacts outweigh onto what? Oh, then you do extend Lipschultz because that talks about how only real impacts are because our impacts are actually real. It's really mentioned this. My partner will probably go over more onto politics. A quick card, no chance of war from economic decline, best and most recent data, Dresner 14. The level of peace in 2012, the same 27 concern with ground and the homes already global governance, interstate violence, global military expansion, declines started under financial credit recession, not trigger an increase in violent common crisis, not generate, and they have even no link on this. All their evidence is not in the context context of 0 days. They have no explanation. Then they completely drop or they not really insert Schultz evidence saying how they're not passing riders right now because they are stalling. There's gonna be no riders even added to it right now. And then we have our uniqueness evidence saying how there's bike parts for it right now. There's a GoGo 612 which complete text shows how there's no link to this, and they have no explanation. And nuclear warfare in Russia will always outweigh great power wars because they'll lead to more. And you need to extend the cover because it shows what is actually being debated in Congress right now that gives of the healthcare and the refugees onto the counterplan. Extend permanent goals. The only answer is how it will not restore trust. So when the counterplan will not even ever be able to solve that because it is in terms of solving public trust as well. Other cards about. Do not let them come up here and say it is about our app is specifically talking about cyber threats and Russia. Nothing about the public perception. So it cannot even solve it at the end. There's no explanation on how this happens. And we have our Bradley 13 evidencing how high political costs will mean no circumvention because especially since post Snowden and what has been having the essay doesn't want to be boggled down any more than what it already is. So it will not risk the chance of circumventing and disobeying the law. And also they have been shifting what their net benefit because in the first process they said it was circumvention. Now it's politics. Do not give them on the honeypots. There's no real link on honeypots because honeypots is just based on 0 day because the plan solves honeypots. Honeypots are meant to reveal 0 day exploits, so that's what the firm is doing, and we're disclosing it to the company so there will be no 0 days ever at the end of the day, and we can solve the cyber terror because there will be no cyber terror after 0 day exploits because that's what is mainly happening. There is no link, no explanation how it outweighs the affirmative.
Yeah, 6 minutes.
Yeah, 6 minutes? 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to do back to 6 minutes.
That's what I know. Yeah.
You may want someone's squash back first. You're not coming, Primo? Or
You guys
just
said you were going for IP threat, right?
For the
No, for Kurt.
Oh, you're going for IP threat?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Okay. Got you.
Should I call them in?
Are they outside?
Yeah, no, like literally right out there.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I see the river.
They're like consulting.
Conversing next to a tree.
No. They're done with prep. I'm leaving before around 6.
Sit. What?
I had to get back to school.
Do what?
Fine.
Sorry, right now.
I have been to kind of a month further.
That's not it.
Order. Security, honor plan, honeypots, politics,
Well, security,
Wyden,
honor plan, honeypots,
politics,
politics.
Olympics. There.
My case is like in 3 different flows, so.
There. IP threat.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the office again?
Security, Wyden, honeypots, politics. KCP, DA, DA.
Whole class, right?
Yeah.
KCP, honeypots, case, politics.
No. Politics.
Politics.
Ready?
Yes.
We concede all offenses to the K, counterplan, and DA of honeypots. We're not going for it. Now on to politics. The DA outweighs the case and the NEG controls conflict, economic ties, check conflicts that emerge in the status quo with those who collapse with a shutdown. A large internal link to conflict. We have multiple scenarios for instability. The app isolates one. There's a fast internal link. Shutdown immediately happens to collapse confidence. Loss of global ripple effect. The app is linear. This is unanswered in the last speech. They bring up this impact being addressed in their 14 card, too late in the debate. What if they have already dropped the impact? To extend the impact cards that are royal, can and heroes borrowers, now ensuring that how econ decline leads to war. This is essentially conceded in the last speech. The third parts aren't answering the unique argument. Healthcare is a part of the omnibus bill, so favor that evidence for us, and the refugees aren't going to grab the bill. Ride the bill. They have literally dropped all 4 turns to extend those all here. Cooperation, especially in an incentive to preserve resource means cooperation is impossible. It magnifies war. Short warning and flight times mean states move toward preemption. Makes escalation more likely. Rollback, shutdown means the plan cannot be implemented. Terror, groups become more radicalized without economic outlets. Root cause terrorism. Don't let them bring this up in the last as we can't answer it. They say we dropped their Schultz 12-3 card, but we extended our Wong and Lillich's 11-3 card, saying that it's a passing and the GOP will be the swing vote. In addition, the Cordell 11 punches that the riders will destroy the bill and cause a shutdown. Extend the Jones 12-3 evidence, which is dropped, and it's really good at explaining why the GOP is pushing now. Focus link is dropped in the last debate, and the surveillance link in Sasso 14 card, so even though they say no link, they just haven't answered it. Now on to case. They bring up that, the whole thing is that they only have one impact in their case today. It is that there's nuclear war. That's their right for read 14 evidence. So they agreed in the counterline that our Russia is modernization, is becoming more modern. And they extend our ITAR task present evidence that shows that Russian modernization is focused on nuclear deterrence, and it's working right now. This evidence shows why their impact, there's no solvency to their impact. There are only one impact in this round, and there's no solvency to it because modernization will solve for it. They have failed to respond to this evidence. They keep on saying, oh, well, we're not even talking about it. What are we talking about? We're not even talking about modernization. That's all they're talking about is that this piece of evidence wasn't linked to their case.
Even if they win,
The impact on
next still
controls the conflict, and
economic ties
check the impact. Extend our Aziz 14 evidence shows that advanced technology allows citizens to be more aware of the enemy with less government bias. This new empathetic awareness makes it difficult to go to war. This shows another reason why the Russians won't go to war, because people will be more knowledgeable. They haven't answered why Russia is non-modernization right now, becoming more modern. And because of this, we have to assume that Russia is modern, becoming more modern, and our evidence, because they have failed to refute, and they've conceded this throughout the round, that Russia is becoming more modern. And this evidence shows why they won't go to war, and that's their only impact.
And they agree to that across.
And they agree that to in process as well.
Modernization leads to aggression.
Modernization leads to aggression. They consider that in the process. Then now, and then plan prevents Russian. Oh wait. Yeah, and plan prevents Russian modernization. That's key to nuclear deterrence. That's our anti-chosen evidence. It shows that how if they go through with the plan, then Russia won't be able to be more modern. They won't be able to do things that will cause nuclear deterrence in the future, and that is they're gonna fail to stop nuclear war. Their only evidence in the re-15 evidence, it shows that Putin must attack first before the U.S. So they're implying on a case where Russia must attack first. The probability of this is low, and on time frame sticks long forever because of miscalculation. They don't know when Russia will attack first, and because of this, we win on time frame because the shutdown will happen in a week. And because it happens in a week, we outweigh on the impacts. And we outweigh on time frame because it's going to happen in a week. The impacts are going to happen soon. Then onto cyber war, they bring up their thing in the solvency. They can't solve. There's no point of their plan. There's no external link evidence shows that there's no threat to cyber war. They conceded this throughout the round. Because of this, we assume that there is no cyber threat wars. Extend our Hodgkin 15 evidence is that we reject the doom and gloom prediction and how that, and there's a low probability and difficulty to cyber attack. That's a rate 14 evidence.
Yeah. No, it was like.
It's going to be a case and then politics. And an overview on case.
So Russia and politics?
Russia and politics with an overview on Russia.
How big is this overview?
Might want to do like sheet of area. I mean, we just kind of like what you're voting on.
No, give me like 10 seconds.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
You're voting on two things. First, that the case outweighs the dissent, any risk of the case, because they haven't given us a solvency, means on 100% solvency, the case outweighs the decide with the Russia war scenario that I will get into more on the case. And two, they have not extrapolated a link on the politics flow. I'll get into that on politics, why, but they just keep saying riders. They haven't responded to our riders evidence, they have no link on politics, so you can't grant them that there. First on IP theft, they keep saying modernization solves back, but their only modernization evidence, their ITAR task evidence, is from 2012. You have to look at the recency of our evidence that we keep repeating. The ASIC Shannon evidence from the 1AC that we keep extended through is from 2015, talks about Russia militarism now. That means they're empirically proven wrong that modernization checks back because Russia is militarizing now and they're trying to show their aggression right now. The Reid evidence is very new on this. Now, nuclear escalations right now. Reid specifically talks about how Russia is putting troops in the Arctic. Russia has bombers right now. Russia is showing, you can look at the scenario of Ukraine, like empirically proven that their modernization doesn't check back. This argument makes no sense. And then their only link on this argument that the our plan, their NTI evidence, that our plan hurts modernization. They never read this evidence. They just bring up the last speech, and even if you grant them to bring it up in the 2AR, it's really blippy. He reads the tagline of it, doesn't even read the card. Makes no sense. They have no reason why IP theft wouldn't work. So you have to grant a 100% risk of solvency. Russia IP theft now. That's the Bennett evidence that is very specific. 2015. You have to extend the Bennett evidence. The Hamilton evidence specifically talks about that the Russia theft right now is key to Russia trying to get power over the U.S. That's what ASIC Shannon specifically talks about when he says Russia is militarizing right now. You can disregard their modernization claims because it doesn't deter violence. Russia is militarizing right now. ASIC Shannon talks specifically about it is because of 0 days, that is why our plan solves. And Reid specifically talks about, so they have no impact even here, that it will lead to nuclear escalation. You have to assume 100% risk of this impact because Russia is militarizing now. There's troops in the Arctic, there's bombers going over, they've gone into Ukraine. The militarization is there right now, and the want to attack that Hamilton talks about and that Kagan talks about is there because they're stealing IP theft and I feel like they have the advantage. This completely outweighs the disadvantage because there was a 100% risk of an impact, and I'll get to that more on politics, but you have to extend that IP theft is happening right now, and that Russia is stealing that theft to grow to global power. Like their Cushion's evidence that says U.S. strength will return troops from 2011. Clearly, like, Russia's ignoring that. All of our evidence is very new in the status quo. How Russia is militarizing right now. Modernization does not deter Russia's own violence because they have shown it in the status quo. None of their evidence makes sense. In any sense, you can't buy any of that evidence now into politics. First on politics, they disregard our Schultz card, which is a huge issue because this directly takes out their link that is a very general link that doesn't mention surveillance whatsoever, but that says riders are going to be attached to the bill. Specifically, they talk about Planned Parenthood or attached to the spending bill. But Schultz specifically talks about that riders will not happen. There will be no riders. The Schultz card is the newest piece of evidence on the politics, though. So you have to assume that there will be no riders. And none of their link evidence talks about surveillance or 0 days. They haven't extrapolated a link. We asked them multiple times in cross-checks what the link was, and they can't extrapolate it. They just keep saying Cordell or whatever that card is. It talks about riders. It doesn't say surveillance. Ask before or after the round. They absolutely have no link. And then also extend Dresner. If they can bring up a new link, even if it doesn't make sense later in the day, they can bring up new impact events. Dresner empirically denies their war claims. Dresner specifically talks about how even with the economic decline of 2008 with the housing market crashing, there was absolutely no war and no change of peace between that time and the time period now. There's absolutely no change of peace. There's empirically no impact of war. And even if you buy that war impact, there's an impact of war, they have absolutely no link on the politics side. Nothing on the sort of plan. There's the word 0 days isn't in their politics side. You can look for it 100 times. 0 days is a small niche that won't affect politics. And then you also have to look at our thumpers. First is healthcare, and second is refugees. What the thumpers specifically is healthcare reform and denying refugees is specifically going on in Congress right now. That denies any political capital use will go to those thumpers and will not have anything to do with their actual spending plan. Their spending bill is not their unique statement is very old. So you have to assume that what is going on in Congress right now is the healthcare and the refugees. Therefore, regardless of what the plan has any effects in Congress, it will not affect the politics TA since they have absolutely no link of how it will affect it, and it's not even in Congress right now because they have to look at the thumbers and the recency of that evidence, both from the past couple days, the healthcare and the refugee reform, and then. Also, you have to extend the COCA card. This is bipartisan support. This is specific to surveillance. There's bipartisan support for curtailment surveillance like NSA. So even if you buy their link, it's still supported in Congress. It won't cost them political capital, and they make this big time frame argument. But first, their card on time reset will happen right after shutdown happens, but their uniqueness card they read in the 1NC is from November 3rd. If it was happening a week after shutdown, why hasn't it happened yet? There have been huge bills going into Congress. There hasn't been shutdown. Their time frame arguments are very small. We haven't seen the threat right now. It's what Bennett talks about. How the threat is open right now. They have no time frame on this dissent. They have no link on this dissent. They have no impact on this dissent. It doesn't mention surveillance whatsoever. And because it's not unique, because there's other things going on in Congress that will use Obama's political capital. The case outweighs the dissent. You have to vote on the Istikhanov Russian aggression evidence right now. It's very new on that flow, and the nuclear escalation, you have to assume 100% will happen. This is the biggest impact. The case outweighs the decide here, and that's what you're voting on. Do I have time to use the bathroom?